is your 10-minute warning. Big Ten TED Live starts in 10 minutes. Welcome, Big Ten fans. This is Big Ten Ted Live.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another Wednesday night. It is another edition of Big Ten Ted Live here on a beautiful Wednesday night here in the Midwest, here in Big Ten country. Ladies and gentlemen, we are 71 days away. Let the countdown begin. 71 days until the Nebraska Cornhuskers invade Minneapolis to take on the Minnesota Golden Gophers the night of August 31st in prime time on Fox. Yes, 71 days until we kick off. So just a little bit more than 2 months away. So in tonight's show, I'm going to look at offense. I'm going to look at defense, going to power rank 1 through 14, where I think each team sits in the Big Ten on offense and defense. I know these power rankings can be tough when we're yet to see football teams 2 months away, but I'm going to take a stab at it because I think these are discussions that need to be talked about. These are discussions that need to start because there's a lot of room for error, I think, and there's a lot of teams that could go up. There's a lot of teams that could go down. So we're going to break that thing down as we progress throughout the show tonight. Once again, if this is your first time popping into Big Ten Ted or Big Ten Ted Live, make sure you hit subscribe so you know when we're going live, uploading a video, a short, a poll, all things Big Ten every single day here on the channel. Okay, so we're going to do that here. So make sure you do that. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Speaking of that front, I just want to give a big thank you to everybody recently, a couple of days ago, past the 2,000 subscriber mark here on YouTube. So I just want to thank everybody for subscribing to the channel, for caring what I have to say on a day-by-day, week-by-week, month-by-month basis. It's nice to be able to talk about my passion, talk about college football, talk about Big Ten football to you guys as well, and have you guys kind of come back a little bit. So thank you for that, and let's keep it on growing. Let's keep on growing here throughout the offseason and as we approach the first game of the season. Want to touch on a few things as well. Big congratulations to the University of Nebraska, right? The transfer of that great All-American softball pitcher, Jordy Ball, transferred from Oklahoma to Nebraska. I just believe this is another example of really good leadership within Nebraska athletics. I think Trev Alberts, for many, many reasons, I think the football coach got it right, putting a 90,000 people into Memorial Stadium for a volleyball game. And I know Trev Alberts does not have, at least I don't think, a direct approach by having Jordy Ball transfer to Nebraska. I still think there is a positive image coming out of Nebraska with a organization and athletic program that has maybe lacked some leadership over the years. Really, ever since the 90s, pretty much every athletic director except Tom Osborne and now Trev Alberts have kind of had their flubs. I think getting good leadership back in that athletic program could be a positive sign, especially for the football team going forward. So I want to send a big congratulations out to the University of Nebraska for that. Things are looking good all across the athletic department for the University of Nebraska. So 1 through 14, offense and defense. We're going to rank them. There were some tough spots. There were some tough calls in all of this. So here's how it's going to kind of go down tonight. I'm going to present my 1 through 14. We're going to do offense first. Then we're going to take a look at your comments. We're going to read some comments. We're going to discuss a little bit for my 1 through 14 rankings on the offensive side of the ball. And then after that, we'll move to the defensive side of the ball as well. I'll present my 1 through 14, and then we'll get to some comments as well after that. So I think it's going to be a fun night here on Big Ten Ted Live. Thanks, everybody, for being along for the ride here this evening. Offense. It is going to be a very interesting year in the Big Ten Conference on the offensive side of the football. When doing preparation for these rankings, I start first with the quarterback. I start first because the quarterback is the most important position on a football team. And if you look at Big Ten quarterbacks, the more I kind of dove into this, I'm like, there's a lot of newbies here, which can make it a little bit tough to power rank offense. Okay, look at the flag behind me. Who are the returning quarterbacks in the Big Ten? J.J. McCarthy at Michigan, Taulia Tagovailoa at Maryland. Okay, and then you take a look at a couple of guys that were kind of a little half and half. You got to go to Gavin Wimsatt at Rutgers, and then Ethan Kaliak-Manis at Minnesota. Look around the rest of the conference. Indiana got new guys. Taven Jackson, Connor Bazelak is out. Michigan State, Peyton Thorne is out. Ohio State, Penn State got a couple of young, high expectation type of kids at quarterback. Illinois, you lose Tommy DeVito. Iowa, Spencer Petras. Nebraska, lose Casey Thompson. You have Jeff Sims coming in. Northwestern, Purdue, Wisconsin. All of those guys have new quarterbacks, which can make this process a little bit tougher. So then you got to try to evaluate guys that haven't really played Big Ten football, which can always be a little bit of a difficult task. So I'm going to show my 1 through 14 rankings right now, and I'm going to explain them a little bit. I start first at number 1 with the Michigan Wolverines because I believe they've got the best quarterback in the Big Ten. I believe they've got the best offensive line in the Big Ten, and I believe they've got the best backfield in the Big Ten. I think it's arguable. I think there's an argument to be made that they could have the best tight ends in the Big Ten as well, with Colston Loveland and A.J. Barner as well on that at tight end. But the only place I think that where they maybe fall behind a little bit is at wide receiver. And of course, we know Ohio State is right there. I think Ohio State is, if Kyle McCord can really swoop in and plug himself in, and really perform well, because I don't think he has a ton of pressure on him. I don't think that Ohio State really needs him to be super outstanding this season, because you look at Travion Henderson and Mayan Williams in the backfield. You look at that wide receiving core. Is this the best wide receiving core since 2019 LSU? Marvin Harrison Jr. is on the level, in my opinion, of guys like Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. He's on that level. And Ohio State is going to be ultra explosive right there, maybe no matter how Kyle McCord's not going to lay an egg. Devin Brown, they're not going to lay eggs. Ohio State is going to be fine. You look at Penn State back there. Like, you take a look at the top backfields in the Big Ten in the country, Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. It is tough to compete with Michigan, but when I look at top backfield, 1A and 1B, that's how I feel about Michigan and Penn State. We know the running game's going to be good. And that's kind of, if you were stuck in a time machine from 2 years ago, when you look at Noah Cain, when he had a tough time running the ball for Penn State, and now all of a sudden they've improved in the offensive line. They got 2 of the best backs in the country in their backfield. Yeah, it's a little bit different than it was a couple of years ago. Penn State has done a great job turning that part of their football team around. You bring in a new guy in Drew Aller, who we think is going to be good. Spring game tape wasn't outstanding. You got some receivers at Penn State, once again, that are solid. Keandre Lambert-Smith, Dante Cephas, the transfer, Harrison Wallace. Like, you got some good guys. Theo Johnson at tight end. I just don't think they're on the level of a Michigan or an Ohio State right now. Going to be very interesting to see Alar versus McCord, who ends up better in their new offense. That's when things, you start to kind of go down the list a little bit. I got Taulia Tagovailoa and Maryland right there. They're a much more balanced offense than I think a lot of people realize right now. Of course, Leah comes back at quarterback, one of the more experienced quarterbacks in the Big Ten. It's really him and J.J. McCarthy. Roman Hemby at running back. This is a backfield, I think, that is very good, and they provided balance to this offense that they maybe didn't have a few years back. You bring back your top 2 wide receivers, Deshaun Jones. Tight end Corey Dyches, I believe, could be one of the best tight ends in the Big Ten Conference. So this is going to be a Maryland team that is still going to be very good. I got Wisconsin at number 5. Okay, Wisconsin, I think a lot of this goes in maybe to the coordinators, right? I'll talk about it when I get to the defensive side. I'm going to talk about it as well on the offensive side here with Phil Longo, right? I think Phil Longo can get the most out of this team. Now, if you think that this offense is going to be just like it was at North Carolina or very similar to what Tanner Mordecai had at SMU, you better check yourself. Because they're going to do what's best for Wisconsin. When you've got Braylon Allen and then Ches Malusi behind him and a couple of offensive line transfers that kind of make things a little bit better on that offensive line, I honestly believe this is a Wisconsin team that could be pretty focused on the run game, even though they bring in a quarterback that can sling it 45 to 50 times a game, even though they bring in some receivers that still look pretty good for the Wisconsin Badgers. But this is going to be a balanced team, right? The thing about Tanner Mordecai, he's turnover prone against some of the better defenses that he played. 2 interceptions against Maryland last year. I think it was the games against Tulane and maybe UCF. Threw multiple interceptions against the better teams that he played. Is he the second coming of Brett Favre in the state of Wisconsin? Maybe he's not that good. But you kind of get what I'm saying. Sometimes you want to pull your hair out. Sometimes you say, oh my God, that was the greatest throw I've ever seen in my life. So Wisconsin fans, they've been pretty steady. Right, when it comes to quarterbacks over the years. Joel Stavey, Alex Hornibrook, Graham Mertz, sometimes, you kind of know what to expect. There's not a lot of gambles. I don't know if that's going to be the case for the Wisconsin Badgers and Tanner Mordecai. That's why this offense needs to be balanced. That's why this offense needs a run game with Braylon Allen, and I think that definitely can exist here in this offense. Let's go back to the rankings. Minnesota, look, when you look at the Golden Gophers of Minnesota, you take a peek at Ethan Kaliakmanis, and he really came on at the end of last season. Ethan really did outstanding at the end of last season, and they have, although they don't have Muhammad Ibrahim, they still have weapons where they can put the ball in the air, they can run the ball on the ground. This is a Minnesota football team that can still do some damage. Okay, when you look at their backfield, where you had one guy last year, I think you're going to have a stable of running backs this year, right? Zach Evans, Sean Tyler, the transfer, maybe Darius Taylor, the true freshman. Bryce Williams is back there. Remember, Chris Ottman-Bell and Brevin Spanford, wide receiver and tight end, are here. They bring in a couple of transfers, Elijah Spencer and Corey Crooms, and then you throw in Lemeki Brockington. I have this Minnesota offense where I have them because of the talent that's around Ethan Kaliakmanis right now. Moving on. I got the Iowa Hawkeyes. Look, when I said coordinators, I know this seems a little high right now for me for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Right now, because I just don't know what I'm going to get with bad luck Brian Ferentz at number 7 with the Iowa Hawkeyes. You bring in a guy that's won a Big Ten title in Cade McNamara. You bring in a guy in Caleb Brown who is a top 100, high 4-star type of kid that's explosive. You bring in an extra tight end in Eric All to go with Luke Lachey. Caleb Johnson is a running back there in the backfield that can really do some things. Like, all of that together seems very good. And this is an offensive line that I think will improve. It really has to improve because Cade McNamara was playing behind one of the best offensive lines in college football when he won a Big Ten championship. Now, all of a sudden, if Cade is under pressure a lot, how does that affect him in pushing the ball down the field versus the pass game? And the offensive line is a big key for the Iowa Hawkeyes. I got Purdue at number 8. Look, Purdue is a team right now. I think that is very interesting. I don't quite know if I want to put the scary label yet on the Purdue Boilermakers, but Mike Farrell's top transfer quarterback in the country is Hudson Card, right? And that, I think, is saying something, right? Over guys like a Sam Hartman or a Tanner Mordecai or a Devin Leary, Hudson Card, according to him, sticks out the most. This is a Purdue offense that I think could be very interesting when you look at Hudson Card. How about Devin Mockabee? Maybe one of the most underrated running backs in the entire Big Ten Conference back there as well. Devin Mockabee. And then you look at their wide receivers. They don't have a Rondale Moore. They don't have a David Bell. They don't have a Charlie Jones. They don't have guys like that. They don't have a standout. I think TJ Sheffield and Mershawn Rice are good. They're solid. Corey Gamage, the transfer coming in from Marshall, looks like he could be very good as well. They're going to have a bunch of good receivers. I don't know who's going to stand out. Are you going to have a 1,000-yard receiver at Purdue once again? I don't think so. But this is an offense that could possibly rise up the ranks as well. I've got Illinois sitting at number 9. They've got good talent on the outside, but this was an offense that was so reliant on Chase Brown last year, and they don't really have the run game that they did, at least the talent in the backfield that they did a year ago with Reggie Love and Josh McCray. I think Josh McCray may be the guy in Champaign. Luke Altmaier appears to be a really good quarterback. It's just how are they going to adjust their offense kind of as things go on. Nebraska, right now I just don't know if Jeff Sims is going to be the guy that is going to realize the full potential of this Nebraska Cornhuskers offense. I think he's good. Like, I watch his tape. He's good on tape, but this guy suffered some injuries. His stats aren't outstanding. He hasn't had a 2,000-yard season throwing the football. I think his best season was 13 touchdowns and 13 interceptions a few years back. So it's a very much of a wait-and-see approach with Nebraska. When I look at the Cornhuskers, I just don't see elite players in the backfield in the Big Ten. I don't see elite players on the perimeter. I see solid players. I see good players, and the offensive line really worries me as well. This is an offensive line that has allowed a lot of pressure on the quarterback. Maybe that can change with Jeff Sims and his dual threat abilities, and he can get away from pressure. Or with that dual threat ability, is he going to take more hits and maybe be more prone to an injury like Casey Thompson was last season? So I think there's a lot of give and take there for Nebraska. Watch out, folks. Watch out for Indiana. Indiana could be an exciting football team. I'm really excited to see what's going to happen with Indiana. Taven Jackson comes in, 4-star transfer quarterback from Tennessee. Then you look at Cam Camper. You look at Jalen Lucas. The transfer, DeKeese Carter, over 2,000 yards and 22 touchdowns the last 2 seasons at FCS Fordham. And then E.J. Williams, a highly recruited transfer coming over from Clemson. This is an Indiana offense. Look, they're not going to have much on the defensive side of the ball. But on offense, this could be an exciting team for Indiana. Michigan State, it's hard for me to imagine Noah Kim or Caton Hauser, whoever they choose at quarterback, to come in here and really do some damage. This is an offense, right? You've had Keon Coleman, Jaden Reed, Kenneth Walker a few years back. I don't see that type of skill player on this Michigan State team. You look at a guy like a Jalen Berger running the football. You bring in Nathan Carter, a transfer running back. Michigan State needs to hope that this is a program, this is a team that is a run-first type of team, and they can get a good enough push up front on their offensive line to create holes for those backs that maybe that opens things up in the passing game. They're still riding with Trey Mosley as their number one guy. They got a Nebraska transfer and Alante Brown coming into the team as well. I just don't think that's enough, folks. I just don't think that's enough firepower on this team to really make a difference at Michigan State. Northwestern, you bring in Ben Bryant, you bring in A.J. Henning, Cam Porter comes back at running back. You've made improvements, still not there. And where does Rutgers sit with Gavin Wimsatt? Can this be his breakout season? I think we've been waiting for Gavin to really develop into that 4-star quarterback that everybody was expecting at Rutgers, right? This is a program at Rutgers. I believe they're going to have to run the football. Sam Brown, Kyle Monangai, Aaron Young, they're going to have to carry the load to kind of take some heat off of Gavin Wimsatt and this offense for Rutgers. So there you have it. I like Michigan as the number one offense in the Big Ten. Best quarterback, best offensive line, best backfield. Michigan could be explosive this year, folks. This is a Michigan offense that could almost do anything they want at any given time. There's a lot of really good offenses in the Big Ten this year that I'm excited to see go at it. Very exciting to see what's happening in the Big Ten on offense this year. A lot of new quarterbacks. A lot of new quarterbacks out there. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch these guys go to work. Watch these guys go to work. All right, let's get to some comments. Immaculate jumping in. It's wild now that Iowa's known for their defense when it's bread and butter historically. Offensive line, tight ends, right? Those are the type of players that Iowa has been able to put at the professional ranks. Offensive line, of course, tight end you guys like George Kittle and Dallas Clark and the like. This has been an Iowa team that has produced really well at those positions, but it's kind of shifted a little bit to the defensive side of the football. They've always been, I think, a solid defensive team, but they've really stepped it up a notch here in this last couple of years, especially in the turnover department, taking the football away. The ball Hawkeyes have really come to play the last few seasons, I believe. They'll take it. They'll take it at number 7. Immaculate, the Hawkeye fan. They'll take it. They'll take it. And when you look at the Iowa Hawkeyes, according to Immaculate, it's a win-win. It's either 25 points a game or Brian Ferentz, according to the contract, is a goner. So either way, Iowa fans are maybe going to get what they want here coming down the line. Jared Jones checking in. Ohio State should be number 1. But he's going to let it slide this time. Look, Kyle McCord, if this is a guy that can put up big numbers, and I could put up big numbers when I'm throwing to Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Ibuka and Julian Fleming and Cade Stover, and I got Travion Henderson, and I got Mayan Williams behind me to kind of take the load off. Put me in there. I've got eligibility left. I'll take some classes at the Ohio State University. We'll make it happen. But no, but seriously, I think Kyle McCord's going to step in. Remember, Kyle McCord was a high school teammate of Marvin Harrison Jr., so a lot of times in spring ball through fall camp, a lot of the struggles between a quarterback and a wide receiver are getting that chemistry, getting that timing down. They might already have that in the books, Kyle McCord and Marvin Harrison Jr., so that might already kind of be in that position. Josh chiming in, Penn State fan, they are in the house tonight. Dallas Schwartz chiming in, will be interesting to see how well the Michigan offensive line this year after the past 2. They brought in a couple of West Coast transfers, Pac-12 guys that have started in the Pac-12 that are going to be plugged into this offensive line immediately. This is going to be, I don't know if they're going to win the Joe Moore Award again for the 3rd consecutive time as the best offensive line in the country, but I think they're going to be in the running. I really believe the Michigan Wolverines are going to be in the running as one of the best offensive lines in college football. Yeah, lately it's been defense. It's been defense for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Getting a lot of defenders in there, and maybe it's because their offensive line has taken a little bit of a dip as well, whether you want to blame that on Brian Ferentz, whether you want to blame that on tight ends, offensive line, that may be taking a dip as well. Whatever it is, it's just that's what's happened, and the Iowa defense has maybe stepped up a little bit as well. Some studs going to the draft this past year. You look at Jack Campbell over there. I think Jack is going to do great things in the National Football League. I believe he got drafted by the Detroit Lions, if my memory serves me right. I think he's going to do great in there. I think he's going to do great at the National Football League. So I'm very excited to kind of see what has happened. This Iowa defense, everybody in the comments right now is really leading into my next segment. Really leading into segment number 2 of the program. I love Big Ten defenses for 2023. The Big Ten has some of the best defensive coordinators in all of college football, and thus they have some of the best developing defenses in all of college football. When you look at defense, the past couple of seasons, I believe the standard bearer on the defensive side of the ball in the Big Ten has been the Iowa Hawkeyes, and that's why the Iowa Hawkeyes still continue to be my top defense in the Big Ten. Here's what I've got: 1 through 14 power rankings on the defensive side of the football. As long as Phil Parker is still there, and as long as you got good to solid talent in Iowa, Iowa's going to be there. They've got a deep defensive line. Outside of Lucas Van Ness, they bring back a lot on their defensive line. It's very deep and it's very good. When you look at the secondary, they've got some killers back there that are going to take the football away. Xavier Nwankpa. Okay, you look at him. You look at Cooper DeJean. You look at Quinn Schulte. Beyond that, it gets a little thinner. But once again, I still have faith. I still trust that Iowa is going to find guys to plug those holes, and they're going to be just fine. Nick Jackson at linebacker as well is going to be fine. Look, he's not going to replace Seth Benson. He's not going to replace Jack Campbell, but he's a very good start to build around. This is still the top defense in the Big Ten at Iowa. You get to Michigan, and this is still a really good and a really deep defense, I think, for Michigan. Like, you look at the depth at linebacker for the Wolverines. You look at Josiah Stewart, Junior Colson, Ernest Hausman, Jalen Harrow, Michael Barrett. There's a lot of depth at linebacker, folks, at Michigan. There's a lot of depth there, and that secondary is tough as well. Will Johnson, one of the best DBs out there. Mike Sanderstil, Rod Moore, Makari Page. There's really good players in this secondary for Michigan. Ohio State might have one of the most talented front sevens in the conference. Okay, when you look at what the Buckeyes have from JT Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyer, Michael Hall, Tommy Eichenberg, Steele Chambers, there's a lot of talent to go around here at Ohio State. There's a lot of talent. Can Jim Knowles bring it all together? Can they be a really good unit? I still think there's some holes to fill. Ohio State has brought in some transfers in the secondary to try to take care of that, but we'll see what happens. Right now, I'm looking at Ohio State at number 3. You look at Penn State right now. They've got some studs on this defense. When you look at Abdul Carter, Kalen King, Chop Robinson, Curtis Jacobs, those are the studs of the defense. I think there are some holes to fill after that as well, but this is still going to be a very good Penn State defense. I just don't know if they have as much talent, quite as much talent, as Ohio State on the front seven. I think they might be a little bit better on the back end as well. Like I said, early in the season, it's a lot about gut as who gets ranked one higher than the other. You talk about killers. Illinois has some killers, especially on the defensive front with Johnny Newton and Keith Randolph, Gabe Yakis as well in there. You look at Tariq Barnes and Seth Coleman. That's another really good front seven at Illinois. The secondary was so big for the Illini last year with Sidney Brown and Devin Witherspoon. Where do they go from here? I love Johnny Newton. I love Keith Randolph. I love some of the guys on these front seven. I just don't know if maybe they're in some spots. Like I say, those two guys on the defensive line is probably the best defensive line pairing in the conference. But you look at some of the other guys at linebacker, at defensive back, I just don't think they're as good as maybe some guys at Michigan, Iowa, Ohio State, and Penn State. Minnesota, a lot like Iowa, as long as they have their guy coordinating their defense, Joe Rossi, I think they're going to be able to put out a solid defense. Remember, this was the third-ranked defense in the Big Ten last year, so having them notched at number 6, I believe, is actually a little bit of a step down for the Minnesota Golden Gophers. But you'll still look at Tyler Newman back there, one of the best safeties in the Big Ten. Justin Wally is a good cover corner as well. Cody Lindenberg, I believe, is going to step up as the main guy at linebacker. There's still solid talent, and as long as there's solid talent on a Minnesota defense, I think they're going to be fine. Maryland at number 7. Jay-Sean Barham could be the best defensive player no one is talking about right now. Had a great freshman season in the middle of that Maryland defense. But the question for Maryland is, how do you replace guys like Deontay Banks and Jacorian Bennett in the secondary? You go out to the transfer portal, you pick up a guy like Jaquan Shepard. Okay, I believe Maryland is a lot better than I think people give them credit for. Bo Braid and Dante Trader, good tandem at safety that can also come up and play the run as well. This is a good Maryland defense, folks. Like, you want to watch for a sneaky team? Like, if this were a 1 through 14, no divisions, Maryland would be that sneaky team. They return a good offense, and this is a pretty solid defense as well that you should be watching out for. You know, outside of Jacoby Windman and Cal Halliday at Michigan State, outside of those guys at Michigan State, where do the Spartans go? Temensi Adelie is a transfer coming in from Texas A&M. That could be solid. But I think this is going to be one of the better Michigan State defenses that Mel Tucker has had. That's not exactly a high bar, but I think this defense could be better. It's just the secondary still lacks a little bit. They lose their top guy back there in Xavier Henderson. How do you replace what you have back there at Michigan State? That's going to be a good question. But I like what they have in their front seven. I think their front seven is solid. And I think this defense is going to need to be good because, man, that offense, it's going to be hard. I think this defense is going to be out on the field more because you don't have that offense, guys that can make plays and can churn out long drives, keep moving the chains, keep getting first downs. I just don't think you have that at Michigan State right now. Wisconsin, the loss of Jim Leonard means a lot, folks. The loss of Jim Leonard could set the Wisconsin Badgers back a little bit. I really like their linebacking core. Mumajong Meta, Jordan Turner, CJ Getz. Defensive line is solid, but when you lose a guy like Keanu Benton and Nick Herbig, your pass rush is going to take a little bit of a dip. Is Mumajong Meta going to be that guy to come in from the linebacker spot and put pressure on the passer? TBD if that is going to happen over there at Wisconsin. The secondary, right? You're installing a 3-3-5 scheme. There's more players. There's more guys back there in the secondary. I think they're a little bit thin outside of like Alexander Smith. I just don't know where they're at right now. I just don't know where they're at Wisconsin. New scheme, a lot of new stuff. We'll see what happens with the Wisconsin Badgers. I got Nebraska at number 10, so Nebraska's number 10 on offense and on defense as well. Look, this was a Nebraska defense that last year, it got better after they let go of Eric Shenander, but this was a Nebraska defense that couldn't really tackle that well and gave up a lot of yardage. Are the transfers, MJ Sherman, Chief Borders, Elijah Judy, are they enough to make a difference to really improve this Nebraska defense? Put them over the top? You see a lot of the same guys returning. Is a more aggressive style of defense in Tony White a benefit for Nebraska? We're sure going to find that out on the field. Northwestern is a defense with Bryce Gallagher and Xander Mueller in the middle of that defense. I think is pretty solid at the linebacker spot. Richie Haggerty, the transfer from Southern Illinois, is a desperately needed pass rushing solution for Northwestern. You got to get back. You got to get back to the defensive side of the football at Northwestern. Rutgers is a tough defense, and I could see them rising throughout. I really like Aaron Lewis coming off the edge. Purdue, tough. Indiana, tough. Like, these weren't great defenses to begin with, and I don't think they're going to be great defenses. Kevin Kane and Ryan Walters have some work to do. They've got some work to do at Purdue. Maybe that's going to be the motto of their defense going forward. This is going to be a great year for defensive football in the Big Ten. I'm really excited about defensive football in the Big Ten. I think you could see some teams like a Rutgers, maybe a Northwestern, a Wisconsin, a Maryland really rise up through the ranks. It's going to be a deep defensive conference. It's going to make it tougher on offenses throughout the season. It's going to be a tough 9-game stretch for a lot of teams in the Big Ten because of these Big Ten defenses. Very excited about defense. It's going to be very exciting to watch the defensive side of the football throughout all of this. All right, let's get to some comments here. Josh chiming in, Penn State. I got to get rid of my graphics so I can see things here. Penn State is number 2 or number 3, but could easily surprise the Big Ten at number 1. The schedule helps. I think this is still talking about offense. I can't remember if this is offense or defense, where my offense started or offense ended and defense. Either way, I think Penn State could possibly rise up. You know, for Penn State, their offense starts with Drew Aller. If Drew Aller can be the quarterback that we all think he can be, Keandre Lambert-Smith is going to get better. He's going to get open. Theo Johnson is going to get open. Dante Cephas is going to get open. Like a lot of these guys at Penn State, they're going to get open. But I don't know if Drew Aller is going to have the best statistics in the world, because this is going to be a team that's probably going to be run first, right? When you got Nick Singleton and Katron Allen in the backfield, yeah, I'd probably be run first as well. So I don't know if the stats are definitely going to reflect what Drew Aller or how good he is going to be. How many reps is he going to get throwing the football early? I want to get him in some of these early games. What do they have? I think West Virginia and Delaware right off the bat. In some of these early games, I really want to see Drew Aller throw the football. I know what I got in the backfield. If I'm James Franklin, if I'm Mike Yurcich, I know what I have in the backfield. I know what I got there. I need to get more reps. I need to build that confidence a little bit from Drew Aller. Need to build that confidence. Alex Lee chiming in, Iowa could be scary good on the defensive side of the football. Gary chiming in, Penn State fan, Ohio State's run will determine the success this year. I could see Ohio State losing 3, Notre Dame, Penn State, and Michigan. Like, Travion Henderson, his freshman season was really good. And 1,000-yard back, he looked great. Last year, dealt with some injury issues. For Ohio State to really take the pressure off of Kyle McCord, a good running game is certainly going to help. A balanced offense. Look, you've got an embarrassment of riches if you're Kyle McCord and if you're Ohio State. Look, guys are going to get open in the pass game. They're going to be able to run the football. The offensive line is solid. But I think running the football is going to be key to really set up Kyle McCord's success in the pass game. Josh chiming in as well. Penn State will be good on defense, but looking for Wisconsin to be upgraded this season. Interesting with the new scheme. I think it might take a little bit. That's where I'm at Wisconsin. I think the loss of Jim Leonard is one of the bigger losses, coaching-wise, heck, maybe even player-wise, in the entire Big Ten this season. I think that's a big-time loss. Now, I think this is still going to be a solid defensive team this year, and they're going to continue to get better on the defensive side of the football once this Luke Fickell and Mike Tressel defensive scheme really gets into the meat and potatoes and you really get some years behind it. I think that's when you're really going to see Wisconsin type of evolve. But this first year, a lot of moving parts in Madison, a lot of unpredictable parts. You know what you've got for the last as long as I've been alive, right? Barry Alvarez, took the job in 1990 or something, 91 at Wisconsin. Like, you know what you've got. You've got a tough physical run game. You've got fine quarterback play. They don't really go over the top. RBU and a really good defense. And things are changing in Madison. Things are definitely changing. Immaculate coming in with a prediction. Iowa and Michigan in the conference championship, number 1 and number 2 defenses. The script writes itself. Cade McNamara was maybe in his mind. In his mind, he was left for dead by Michigan. They went with J.J. McCarthy after he won a Big Ten title. You come back for all the marbles in the Big Ten. Maybe Iowa puts it all together. Maybe Iowa at this point in the season, maybe they're 10-2. Maybe they're 11-1. Maybe Iowa puts it all together and they're looking really good. And maybe this is might be far-fetched, but maybe there's a little bit more on the line than the Big Ten championship, if you know what I mean. Illinois has, I believe, the best combination on the defensive line with Johnny Newton and Keith Randolph. You look at Illinois losing their coordinator. I think Ryan Walters, I think he was there for a short period of time. It's not like a guy like Jim Leonard where he was there for a big chunk of time and you have an established deal. And I really like Aaron Henry coming in as the defensive coordinator as well. I think they've got a lot of talent up there. I really like what Illinois did on the defensive side of the football, and it continues to really do on the defensive side of the football. Mike chiming in thinking, Minnesota got some issues. Remember, this is a defense that still lost Trill Carter up front. You know, they lost, Flip Dixon in the secondary, Braylon Oliver. Minnesota did lose some guys, but they also did bring some guys in the transfer portal that I believe can attempt to fill some of these holes. I got a lot of faith. I've got a lot of faith in what's happening in Joe Rossi and Minnesota. More comments chiming in. Penn State. Man, those running backs. You know what's crazy to me? I just think, look at Singleton and Allen last year. Where would they have gotten drafted? Second round, third round, fourth round, maybe? I'm not an NFL draft guy, but those are just my best guesses. They've got 2 more years of eligibility, folks. 2 more years. And then you look at Drew Aller and the type of talent he looks like. He's got this year and then next year as well. Look, man, it's just, it's crazy to imagine 2024. I did a video, it was last week's live stream, I think, and then published part of it as a video where I think 2024 is the year of the Nittany Lion, folks. I think that's a year where Penn State could put it all together. Abdul Carter will also be on that team as a true junior. Who's going to all be there? If they really rally around and some of these guys run it back another year at Penn State, this is a program in the Nittany Lions that could really get it done. This is a program in Penn State that could take a lot. They could take a jump forward, and they could maybe be a national championship contender in 2024. I honestly believe that. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. More comments. Josh talking more about Penn State. It will be run heavy for Penn State's play action. Dante Cephas is a guy that can stretch the field. Look at Keandre Lambert-Smith in the Rose Bowl. I could see it so often. Close your eyes and imagine, Nittany Lion fans, pound the rock, pound the rock, pound the rock, pound the rock. All of a sudden, play action, Dante's deep. Keandre Lambert-Smith is deep on either side. You throw it to one of them, 60 yards. Put him up, ref. Touchdown. Let's kick the extra point. Like, that's how I feel about Penn State. Maybe it'll happen this year. Maybe this is the year where they can put it all together. It's possible. Right now, the way I'm sitting and the way I look at it, you could see 3 11-1 teams in the Big Ten East, folks. Who wins the East? Who goes to the playoff? A little early, I think, for those discussions. A little early. Abe Griggs checking in a little bit late, but he is here, and he is sporting the scarlet and gray here tonight. Phenomenal Hebrew checking in. I got Penn State, LSU in the national championship. Even though LSU was national champions back in 2019, even though LSU still has been a very good football program, this would be somewhat of a refreshing change of pace from the Georgias and the Bamas. I could maybe get down with this. Tim Prangley, not here yet. USC's not here yet, but maybe when they do get here, they might be pretty high on that offensive power ranking list. Defense, we'll see what happens this season. Jared Jones thinking Wisconsin will be a force in a year or two. It's going to take a little bit. Boy, you look at Wisconsin's schedules. And it's tough, folks. It's tough. Remember, they have a home and home with Alabama coming up. It's at 24 and 20. It's definitely 2025. It might be 2024 as well. Mike chiming in. I think crystal balls are off on a lot this year. I don't think Georgia is going to play in the national championship. Just my thoughts. Alabama is going to surprise some. Who are the SEC's best teams? Right now, I'm not SEC Steve. But right now, if I'm looking at the SEC, I don't know about Georgia, Bama. You're going with what? Ty Simpson or Buckner at quarterback? I don't know. It's just every time we see some of these SEC teams really go through a lot and lose a lot, somehow they always kind of reload. And maybe LSU is that team to really step up this year and really do some things. Maybe. Maybe. Caleb Brown, could he be the guy at Iowa, right? It's been a while since they've maybe had a guy that they can really go to and really rely on at the wide receiver position. Maybe Caleb Brown is that guy. Maybe 4 11-1 teams in the conference. That is crazy for a potential 11-1, but it could happen. My thinking would be all the teams at home win. So let's see if I can remember this in my head. Michigan hosts Ohio State. So Michigan beats Ohio State. Penn State beats Michigan. And then Ohio State beats Penn State. So they all beat each other. And they all go 11-1. Okay, that would require Ohio State beating Notre Dame in the non-conference. Michigan's got a pretty easy road in the non-conference as well. Penn State, it could happen, folks. It could happen. Then where do you go? I don't know where the tiebreaker would land at that point. I'm sure maybe it's division record or something like that. But in that case, they're all even. They've all lost one game to each other. So I don't know where that goes in the college football playoff. Who's in, who's out? I don't know at that point. Would that be Michigan gets recency bias? Michigan gets the win over Ohio State. So Ohio State bumps out. Penn State gets the win, and they jump in there. I don't know. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. Andy, Ted, does Iowa have the best tight end duo in the country? I believe they could, but they are going to have some competition in the Big Ten at Michigan, right, with Colston Loveland and A.J. Barner. A.J. Barner transfers in from Indiana, and he's solid. I think the both of them together at Iowa are probably a little bit better than at Michigan. I think Colston Loveland, maybe out of all of them might be my favorite. I really like Colston Loveland. I love the ability for him to split out in the slot. I love what he can do from the 3-point stance at the end at the line, at the tight end position. But Eric All and Luke Lachey, those are some really good tight ends, folks. Those are some really good players. Okay, I'm very excited to see what happens with both of those guys in an Iowa offense that generally knows how to use the tight end. Take some heat off. Man, I can just see it. Like, if Iowa gets their run game going, offensive line is better, and they pave the way and pave the way and pave the way, all of a sudden, Cade McNamara, play action, roll out, you easily hit a tight end in the flat, and he makes it. He dumps it off 15, 20 yards, move the chains, first down, go Hawks. Like that, I could very well see that happening. That's why the run game is so big. Cade McNamara, I think every now and then can hit the deep ball. It's not something that I want to do a ton with Cade McNamara, even though Caleb Brown is a speed guy that could definitely get over the top against opposing defenses. But I think this is going to be more of a methodical offense. This is not going to be an explosive offense at Iowa, folks. And it doesn't need to be an explosive offense. It needs to be an average offense. That's where Iowa needs to be with what they have on the defensive side of the football, even though their offense might need to step up a little bit more, because that defense needs a break sometimes. It needs a break. You can't overload and put all the weight on this defense's shoulders. That really kind of brings down all of that. More comments here. From Dallas, I believe a USC fan. SC will arrive with a natty hardware in tow as we swoop and grab another one to go. So I really like USC, man. This season is defense. It's defense. Where's the defense going to be? That's what I want to know. Last year was very bad. Where's it going to be? I think it's definitely going to be improved. What I've seen in the transfer portal out of the USC Trojans definitely looks very good. But this season, we're going to find out a lot. Even though you lose Caleb Williams after next season, you're going to find out a lot. Especially on defense, how is this Trojan team going to transition into the Big Ten in 2024? What kind of defensive team do they look like this year, I think could maybe affect what they are perceived to be, at least going into 2024. All right, let's take a look at some more comments. Let's take a look at some more comments. More from Immaculate. Look how good Iowa's defense has been with almost zero offensive support. I'll get to that, back to that in a minute. Got an example on that. Iowa's defense was by far the best because of this. You give them an offense, good luck. Remember that Ohio State game? They're playing on the road, big noon Saturday. And they're forcing turnovers. They're hanging around in the first half, and eventually the dam broke. There was too much pressure. The offense just couldn't. They couldn't move the football against Ohio State, and the defense just like they were on the field way too much. And eventually the dam broke, and Ohio State was able to get big plays over the top. Like, here's the thing about this defense: just give them a rest, man. Just have an offensive drive that takes up some time. Like, I think that's where we need to get for the Iowa Hawkeyes. That's where they need to get as a unit. That's where they need to get as a group. If they can achieve balance in time of possession or time on the field, however you want to weigh that metric, this could be an Iowa team. Like, right now, they're probably my favorite in the Big Ten West. I'll have predictions, I'll have records, I'll have previews down the road. But right now, this is an Iowa team that I believe is, at least should be in the discussion to be at the top of the Big Ten West when all is said and done. Brad doesn't think he's not big on the Brian Ferentz hype train. Not big about Brian Ferentz right now. He says as long as Brian Ferentz is there, it's not going to go well for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Mike chiming in, he's still scratching his head. I think Mike, the Husker fan in here in this group. I still don't know how Iowa beat Nebraska last year. Well, I'll tell you one thing that did make a difference is the injury to Cooper DeJean. Having a guy like Trey Palmer on the team being able to get over the top. That was Nebraska last year. Like, that was Mark Whipple. That was hitting the deep ball. Let's see if we get lucky. Let's see if we can connect. When they were able to hit the deep ball, good things happen. And let me say this about this Nebraska team. They just held off the Iowa Hawkeyes. Like, you saw what Alex Padilla, once they really started opening up a little bit, they were coming back and coming back and coming back. And, man, and Nebraska was just holding on for dear life. Holding on for dear life. It's an MMA fighter. It's a boxer where they know they're getting body shots and they're getting blows and they're just waiting for that round to end so they can regroup and waiting for the match to end so they can get to the finish and win this match. And that's kind of where Nebraska was in that Iowa game last season. Iowa just kept on coming and coming and coming, and Nebraska just made a play late to lock up that contest. Let's see, more comments here. Andy T brings up an interesting comment. When Kirk hangs it up, is Iowa a top 20 job? Top 20? I don't know. Top 20, top 25, top 30? It's numbers. Who cares? It's a really good job. It is a really good job. And there's a lot of support at Iowa for football. The Swarm Collective has done some really good things with NIL, and you get a new athletic director in there. Even though Gary Barta did a phenomenal job in his career resume as athletic director at the University of Iowa, this is still a really good job, folks. And with the right guy in there that maybe has a more newer age way of kind of thinking, especially on offense, this is an Iowa team that could really take it to the next level. They have a great home field advantage. There's a lot of good things to say about Iowa football. It's just we haven't maybe seen, because Kirk Ferentz has been there so long and there's been so much consistency there. I don't know maybe if we've seen what Iowa can truly accomplish. They've accomplished some great things under Kirk Ferentz. Like, you look at what Iowa has done in back-to-back with Hayden Fry and Kirk Ferentz. In those back-to-back coaches, it's unreal. It's crazy what's happened at Iowa. It's amazing, really. what they've been able to accomplish. It's amazing what they've been able to accomplish. Charming. That's what we all want. We want somewhere that's charming to hang your hat as the Iowa Hawkeyes head football coach. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to Big Ten Ted Live tonight. Very much appreciate you being along for the ride here as we continue. We are 2 months and changed away from the college football season. Coming up, going to have previews on the channel of all 14, the Big Ten teams as well. It's going to be a fun countdown to the season. So subscribe if you haven't already. Got all kinds of content here coming down the pike that I'm very, very excited about as well. Very exciting times in the Big Ten Conference, folks. I think the depth in this league this year is going to be very deep. I think the Big Ten West is going to be better, but it's still going to be as fun. It is going to be a fun division to follow with a Wisconsin turnaround in offensive philosophy. You look at Minnesota, Iowa, Illinois. Where's Nebraska going to be? Can Matt Rule and this coaching staff get the full potential out of the Nebraska Cornhuskers? I think that is going to be a very interesting storyline to follow as this season progresses. And, of course, the powerhouses at the top of the Big Ten East. Is it still going to be Ohio State and Michigan at the end of the year? Or does Penn State knock somebody off to make it interesting? It is going to be very, 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 very fun to follow here in the Big Ten Conference this season. Got to call it a night pretty early in the night. Got to get up. Got a camping trip to get to here this weekend here coming up. So I'm going to call it quits here for tonight. I want to thank everybody for coming out on Big Ten Ted Live tonight. Plenty of contact next week. The week after that, the season is fast approaching, folks. Pretty soon, it's going to be late August. It's going to be September, and it's going to be football time in the Big Ten Conference. Until then, thanks for watching. I'm Big Ten Ted. We'll see you in the next one.